Sovereignty for me is my own definition, and I like that because I'm taking a little bit of authority of the world around me, and I'm saying I'm not going to necessarily allow that world to define who I am. That I want to do that, and that is where I find the beginning of my sovereignty. And the sovereignty is also about the reconciliation of binaries, of antithesis, of things that don't necessarily seem to be able to be brought together. But in fact, the real work, the mystical work, is the resolution of those binaries, and that's where sovereignty is found. It is, in my estimation, the greatest work we can do because it is the subtle over the dense. The material world is the world of density, and there's another world that's much more subtle. That's the world of intuition, the world of wisdom. I think that is the world of icon and image, and that is a much stronger energy than just the work of density. But density has some things there that are very interesting, and the material world relies so much on the intellect. And that's where I want to go with this. The intellectual understanding of the material world and how important the material world is to the intellect. It is the material world that is the object of interest to the intellect. And so understanding the material world is something that's pretty interesting too. The material world is really an organic world, and it is a world that is ever decomposing and composing. And those are very important concepts because they are the place, the playground of the intellect. And it is that ever flowing creation and demolition of the world that is the essence of understanding the intellect, because the intellect can only be understood in those terms. So if there's no matter, there's no material world, the intellect cannot be perceived. And that is the meditation that I want to bring forth. It's not a teaching as such, it's a contemplation, it's a way to begin to understand the nature of the world that we find ourselves. And I think the thing that is the most interesting to me is that we spend so much of our time in the intellectual world that is materiality. But is that the world that's the most important? And I'm thinking, no. The world that really is the most important is the subtle world, the world of image and icon. These are the tremendous strengths of the reality that is subtle, not always seen, but is so strong in shaping the nature of the world around us and the world inside of us. So would you rather be shaped by an icon of the divine or the material world you see? For me, it's pretty clear. I'd rather be shaped by an image, the image of the divine that emanates from the divine hierarchy, rather than from the considerations of my mind as it reflects on the material world. And the material world that is ever composing and decomposing itself, ever organizing itself by virtue of the intellect. So the material world needs the intellect to shape it. And that's what humans do. If you think about our history and you think about all the efforts that are made to shape material reality according to the devices and desires of the intellect, it's the major occupation of all of humanity since the year dot. That doesn't seem to be a really fruitful way to go about things. If we know or we believe or we assume or we intuit that the real strength of reality, the concreteness of reality, is found in image and icon. It is not found in the material world. Those symbols and images are far stronger than the materiality that most of us understand. So it's important to understand that if something is not reducible or not reversible, it cannot be understood by the intellect. Science has no answer. So the intellect leans into repetition, the repetitions of malleability, divisibility. And these things occur in time and space. Time and space, then, are the place where the intellect finally resides. In the material world, it is the material world of time and space. Without the intellect, time and space wouldn't exist. So the intellect feeds the material world, which exists in its own created time and space. So, how different is that when you begin to think of such things as the end of time, the end of materiality, the end of karma? So, our concentration on the material world leads us astray a little bit. It cuts out half of, or more than half, or I don't even know how to understand the division of that in the human condition. But it is the intrusion, the acceptance, the synthesis of the intuitive world, the symbolic world, the iconic world. That is where we really find our stability and strength. And that is the world of the divine hierarchy. It's there that we find the image. That's where it is. And so in that image, there is also an understanding that materiality is here, it's real. It's just how much do you want to think about it? How much do you want to exert your intellect over it? And I am suggesting a gentle withdrawal here, a setting down of the material world, or in fact the world of the personality, which runs amok in the material world. So our personality then indulges itself in the materiality of the world around us. So setting that down and finding the work that is done in spirit of our being, in the presence of our being, is a different kind of work. That's the work that I want to do. It's about being obedient to the calling we have in the divine hierarchy. I can really feel that. And to be lost in materiality and to be lost in the devices and desires of our personality just doesn't seem to do very much for what I'm trying to achieve. So I'm not interested in divisibleness or malleableness. I'm interested in the completeness and the cohesion that comes from the divine hierarchy. That's where I want to be. That's the work I want to do. So I submit that to you as a meditation. It's not a teaching as such that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to reach outside of the intellectual framework that comes sometimes from study. And I'm saying, here, enter into a different kind of energetic in this and begin to use the image of your angel as a place to start, to begin to utilize that as a way to enter into the divine hierarchy and to see the subtlety of forms. That's where we're going to find a connection with the divine and an understanding of the nature of the cosmos as its most loving expression. So that's the reality of the subtle world, is it's a world of love. It's not the world of power. The material world is oftentimes power and will. So turning aside from that, that's where the work is. But there is still there's some work to be done with moving through the reality of the material world. And it is a place where we encounter a lot of shadow. I know I certainly have. And it takes moving through that world with our angel into a world that's not quite so driven by our interior life, but can be realized more in the exterior realities that are available to us if we travel very tightly bound to our angel. And some have said that the image of the Mother of God, the woman clothed with the sun, is an image that we should carry with us into the work, into the shadow lands, where we emerged from the other side. We emerge in our sovereignty through the shadow lands. Very powerful images. They're poetic images. And I think that's where the understanding is. It's an image. So I urge you to begin to do your poetic work, to begin to communicate with your angel and the woman clothed with the sun. She can be found in Revelations, and it is the Divine Mother. And that's who we take with us in our work. So there are many things yet to be considered on this. I ask you to meditate and to allow yourself to open up to the subtle world where your angel can guide you through the shadow lands that are necessary to traverse. And after that journey, there is sovereignty. That's what I want this to be about. Why would you make the journey through the shadow land? It's the journey to sovereignty. Amen.